Sometimes we pass through the subway and see some grandmother with an icon, standing, praying, and making the sign of the cross. And then we are told that this grandmother collects a huge amount of money there, and she is protected by the local police, the mafia, and this is a big business. And we say, I don't want to believe anyone. I won't give money to Asians who ask for help for children, to gypsies, to grandmothers. I will give money to charitable foundations. But it often turns out that these charitable foundations are not collecting money for charitable purposes at all. And in fact, behind charity lies either tax evasion or big business. Those who engage in this, or corrupt schemes, or just vain PR on the suffering of people. What can be said? It can be said that the Bhagavad Gita discusses these topics, that charity comes in different forms, in ignorance, in passion, and in goodness, as well as in spiritual charity. Charity in ignorance is the type of charity where we want to do a good deed, but we do not have the time to understand what is good and what is evil. We throw a coin to a drunkard who buys alcohol and kills some drinking companion in a drunken rage, and we become a part of this crime. Such a vivid example, but quite discouraging. Another type of charity is when we want to give something to someone just to maintain our prestige, so that the people around us see how good we are. And this is a more common situation, as people want to appear better than they actually are, to showcase their good qualities to others. But such things happen in passion, in a state of consciousness, when a person is not aware of the great meaning of charity. In goodness, a person is undoubtedly compelled to consider the topic of charity more deeply, not as something superficial, but as a part of their existence. After all, I am a part of the universe. I must benefit others. I must help those around me. There are different forms of charity, such as education, which is a very important form of charity. Many Western philanthropists are involved in it. People who have risen from nothing to the heights of business and success understand that mentorship and education have helped them in life, and they usually begin to become mentors in the second half of their lives, and even financially support education in some way. Because they know how important it is in their own lives, such charity is extremely beneficial. And people come together in groups, participate, and not just throw money somewhere, but achieve results, receive reports, and see how charity changes the world and transforms people, and changes them themselves. In this sense, they are very deeply satisfied people. This is usually done by churches and community organizations, and there are some huge entities, let's say, like the Red Cross. I don't want to discuss their activities because sometimes behind these huge corporate monsters, there are, let's say, quite clear political motives. Therefore, there is no point in even discussing this, as much of what is happening now is merely a beautiful facade. And those specific people who come to treat children, take care of the elderly, and distribute food to the homeless are undoubtedly individuals who engage in charity and goodness. Thus, ignorance, unconscious charity that brings only harm, and passion, where everything is directed towards satisfying one's vanity, goodness, where people truly achieve certain goals and results by helping others, and spiritual charity. When I say the word spiritual, I mean the highest form of charity that brings the highest result. Enlightenment, liberation from karma. It elevates a person. It is very similar to grace and goodness. For example, food is distributed, but we can give people meat food or even vegetarian food. But when we do this on a transcendental level, we distribute prasadam. In India, there are temples where for millennia people have come to receive prasadam. This is food offered to the Lord, and it possesses spiritual energy. It is capable of cleansing karma and elevating a person's consciousness, even in small quantities, and it has a very strong impact on the consciousness of the one who acquires it. Therefore, in a temple like Jagannath Puri, hundreds of thousands of people receive prasada daily and come specifically for this purpose. There are also people who distribute such prasada. In this regard, the Vedas recognize that annadana, the distribution of sanctified food, is the highest form of charity. Although in ancient Vedic culture, the distribution of food was an integral part of society itself, there were never cafes or restaurants, because any person could come according to their class and level, to those people who correspond to his class and level. For example, a kshatriya could stop by the homes of other kshatriyas and receive food and shelter during his travels. This was considered a blessing. To feed a guest, to serve a guest, even if you do not know him. Even in Tsarist Russia, there were quite wealthy, devout people who built shelters for travelers. The entire spiritual system was carried out through wanderers, prayerful individuals, and people who traveled to various temples and pilgrimages. Pious believers built shelters for travelers, fed them and served them. This was a part of Russian culture. In fact, this is part of the ancient Vedic culture, but unfortunately, this culture, like many other spiritual cultures, has been minimized, marginalized, and ridiculed, like feeding the homeless. Therefore, in essence, the distribution of spiritual food is one of the highest forms of charity. There are even higher forms of charity. The distribution of spiritual knowledge, spiritual education, this is what changes people. The preaching of the holy name, true understanding, and Vedic knowledge. Psychological, mental assistance is also a part of charity when we comfort people, as all individuals suffer. And if a spiritual person does this, and previously all psychologists were monks or spiritual people, they show a person not only that their problems stem from their ego and pride, but they also provide not just a painkiller, not a pill, but aspirin, as a nurse would. As experienced therapists, they offer a complete therapy, a spiritual life, prayer, and meditation. The fulfillment of one's duty, the cleansing of sins, and through their communication, they uplift people. This is the highest form of charity. Among all these forms of charity, the highest is to speak to people about Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is the source of love, beauty, and harmony, which is what we seek in our hearts. And this is manifested in all sacred scriptures, yet it is not obvious to those who are in passion, ignorance, or even goodness. This is a completely spiritual message, as it explains that we are all living beings of the soul, parts of the spiritual world, and only there, in the spiritual world, by establishing genuine relationships with God, such as friendship, love, and awareness, meaning close relationships with God, we can enter the family of God. The family of God means living in the same world together with Him, performing the same deeds, and even gaining some degree of power over Him. The Lord submits to His parents and beloved ones, but not in the sense of exploitation. Rather, love governs everything. He cannot refuse his mom who tells Krishna to go eat. He says, "Yes, mom, I will put down my toys and go eat now." It seems incredible. God wants to live in a family, wants relatives and loved ones, and He is open to new souls, but not to those souls that came to somehow use His power. Yes, only to those who come to Him with a pure heart out of love. We also do not want to let our world into the family of people who use us. We use each other. For this, we have an office, a workplace, but in our innermost world of friends, relatives, and loved ones, we want to see only those who truly love us. Yes, some of your loyal companions, beloved relatives, and so on. Therefore, in this regard, a person must remember that the highest charity is what he can do for himself. We certainly must help the whole world, save the entire world. But if we ourselves are in a deplorable state, if we are suffering from the disease of materialism, and at the same time try to heal others with the same materialism, which is a common habit among people, we always know how others should act and forget how we should act ourselves. Therefore, we must start with ourselves. The highest form of charity is to love your soul, to love yourself as a soul. Yes, I must be a part of this spiritual world. I was created for this, and I was created to change in this world. And in this, both spirituality, meditation, and charity will help me. Therefore, as they say, we first put the oxygen mask on ourselves. That is, we start studying the Holy Scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, then meditate, change our lifestyle, and wake up early. Our prices, values, and communication channels, we close off those communication channels that degrade us. For example, there are thousands of news articles on the internet, and we should keep only those that truly help us. If we are professionals, then professional news. If we are involved in finance, then financial news, for example. If we practice spiritual practice, it is natural that we need spiritual channels. As for all the other channels that try to capture us and draw us in, we must say no to them, because it is a waste of our time, a loss of our energy, and a loss of our focus. And focus is very important. And so we must strive to focus on things such as our own spiritual practice, our spiritual communication with the spiritual community, and our activities to support our family, loved ones, and the society in which we find ourselves. Unfortunately, we cannot change the world. We can only change ourselves or our relationships. Often people say that if there weren't so many indifferent individuals, the world would be a better place. One must understand that a person as an individual cannot change anything by themselves. But when a person changes their consciousness and the people around them awaken, for example, awakening their family, friends, and neighbors, they truly change the world. But when he sits on the couch with a bottle of beer and explains how to run the country, he is simply satisfying his inner ego, his pride. There are many such people, and they don't change anything in this world. Rather, they make the world worse because they agree, they accept the world as it is, and themselves as they are. They do not want to change. Therefore, the first task is to pray, to ask the Lord to give me the strength to change myself. The second task is to understand how to change myself. If you want to lose weight or get into sports, you will see that there is a whole industry, a whole technology on how to do it. And you will see that it includes proper nutrition, lifestyle, routine, and hormones. It turns out that you need to train like this, rest like that, and communicate with certain people, and you will understand that this is a whole system. Similarly, in Bhakti Yoga, there is a whole system in yoga that has existed for thousands of years. It is complex, it is quite super professional, it explains what physiology is. Consciousness, the physiology of the mind, the physiology of feelings, the body, how it works, how it is structured, how everything moves in the world of matter, how it is connected to planets, elements, astrology, astronomy, seasons, climate, because everything is constantly changing, and a person must understand that. It is good when it is cold, and bad when it is hot. But at the same time, this system has been refined over thousands of years, and you often see someone practicing Tai Chi or Wushu. I recently met with a great master who is engaged in practices and revives this tradition. I told him, if you want, read 3 Vedic books that explain everything there. There is no need to speculate. Unfortunately, this literature has not been preserved in China. If you read and study it based on the Veda of yoga, you will understand how it works. And he was very happy because he understood that everything has a primary source, and there is no theory without practice. Theory is wonderful, but practice is necessary. If you only practice but lack theory, a theoretical foundation, unfortunately your practice will not yield complete results. Therefore, the combination of theory and practice in our immediate lives requires a mentor, a guru, someone who helps you. These can be completely different people. Here in our system, we want to create a system of spiritual coaching, because coaching and mentoring are very, very powerful systems. This is what allows us to grow for each other, and through that, grow ourselves. And this is the highest form of charity. So, if you have seen this video, you might be wondering, how is that possible? I have lived my whole life doing charity, but I haven't even become charitable for myself, for my soul, for my loved ones, for my family. I have not changed my health, my spiritual health, my mental health. I have not created a world of communication for myself. Yes, in the world of communication, we must first cut off toxic communication. There are people who are toxic. If we are feeding on these mental toxins, which can come from news channels and streams of information, you need to cut them off. This will allow us to adopt a healthy spiritual diet. Friends, it's not that simple. We all go through different stages of life, ups and downs. Even those who practice a spiritual life must return to these fundamental truths at each stage, re-evaluating them. Moreover, I would say that those who have just embarked on this path find it much easier because they are full of enthusiasm. You know, in a marathon, it's easy to run the first 100 meters, but it's hard to run the marathon of eternity. However, if we start by running 100 meters and understand that running is beneficial and brings us inner satisfaction, then we can prepare ourselves for the marathon. And when we are already interacting with experienced marathon runners, we can run in this group for quite a long time and safely because we are prepared for it. So, friends, small steps towards a big goal is our motto. Small steps are the lessons you are listening to right now. And try not to listen to them just idly, but take notes with a pencil and paper and listen again. These are just general tips. One must constantly study the Bhagavad Gita and other sacred texts, but the Bhagavad Gita is the foundation of everything. It provides us with an understanding of all systems of yoga. Ultimately, the essence is that we begin to practice living communication, ask questions to spiritual mentors, seek the spiritual mentor within ourselves, and gradually grow. And in the process of our growth, we may gain spiritual mentors. Some may leave our lives while new ones will come. We ourselves can start helping the people around us. And the main thing is that we should not be afraid of the opinions of others. For example, if you don't smoke, people might say, "How can you live without cigarettes?" If you don't eat meat, you shouldn't think that people will laugh at you. Currently, all of India, almost 50% of the country are vegetarians. All of California is vegetarian, and many vegetarians are in Moscow, my friends. That is, one can be a vegetarian, an athlete, a supermodel. One can be Arnold Schwarzenegger, who made a film about vegetarians. One can be an effective person while also practicing spiritual practice. Many Hollywood actors practice bhakti yoga. Not all of them just talk about it because in the mainstream they have to play, let's say, people of a middle level, that is, in their professional activities. They may be afraid to tell everyone, "You know, guys, I pray every morning." Who will say something about that? I'm curious. Tell me, what car do you have, or who is your new girlfriend? So all these moments exist both externally and internally. So no one is trying to tell you that you should shine on the outside and come to work in sheets. But in the morning, if you have a nice hairstyle, you put on light clothing for yoga and your home meditation practice, you started to practice. Wear your professional attire. There is nothing wrong with that because you are seeking your inner comfort. And this truly allows you to have genuine protection from any and all external material influences. And how this will happen, I will tell you very simply. This consciousness will change, and therefore you will relate to problems in a completely different way.